This fifth chapter of To Protect and Serve is longer than I wanted, therefore I split the chapter into two parts. This is the second section. If you have not enjoyed the first section, please do so.
John replied, I don't know. Dr. Phillips will have to tell us how long. The teacher asked, could you take the assignments to Roger? Certainly. His mom can help him, and I'll bring his assignments in each morning, was John's reply. The teacher smiled at John. Thank you, Sheriff. I'll see you in the morning. John took Amanda, Susan, and Roger to Max and Maxine's clothing store. There, John took Max aside and told him Susan and Roger's story. Max and Maxine told John that they would be happy to help. Sheriff, would cost be too much? Max, Maxine, that would be such a help. They escaped with nothing except the clothes on their backs, John answered. They were able to help Susan and Roger to the tune of about $75. Then John drove them home and told them about living with his mom. Susan started to cry, terrified. What about my husband? He might find us. John replied, I'll have a deputy in the house all the time, day and night. John called his office and asked that one of the deputies on duty meet him at his mom's house. The deputy that reported to the sheriff was Corporal Alan Smith. John introduced Alan to Susan and Roger. Then John directed Roger to lift up his shirt. Alan did a double take and asked what had happened. Susan and John explained the abuses they had suffered at the hands of her husband and that she was terrified. John said, Alan, I want them guarded 24/7 until her husband is caught. Alan agreed. Let me take the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift, Sheriff. I'll stay awake the whole 12 hours. I'll do it every night until you get him. Okay. John said, okay, they will be with me until you come to my place and get them tonight. The sheriff called the office and spoke to the under-sheriff Johnson, telling him to set up a roster to detail officers in his mom's house to guard the Allens for the foreseeable future. John told Steve that Alan had volunteered for the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift. Steve said, okay, what do we do about catching this guy? John replied, I'm going over to see Sheriff Kent in Henry County. That's where they used to live. Pete and I will see what we can find. We might have to call in the State Bureau of Investigation to try and hunt this guy down. That evening Deputy Smith knocked on the door of the Murdoch home. Teresa and Roger answered the door. Oh, Deputy Allen. Please come in. Daddy, Deputy Allen is here. John walked up. Allen, well, they are ready. Could you take them to Dr. Phillips' office tomorrow morning? They have an 8 o'clock appointment? I've told your relief to pick them up at the doctor's office. She will meet you there and be with Susan and Roger until 8 p.m. Allen replied, okay, Sheriff. I'll guard them with my life. Susan and Roger approached. Deputy Smith, we're ready. Deputy Allen and Sheriff John walked with them to Allen's patrol car. John said, Steve is waiting at Mom's house to see them inside. Allen asked, why is Steve there? John told Allen, I want 2 officers present anytime Susan and her son will be outside for any length of time, especially after dark. Allen responded, yes sir. John turned and then turned back. Allen, be alert. Allen smiled, saluted, and started the patrol car, and then off he drove. Deputy Allen and Under-Sheriff Stephen escorted Susan and Roger into the house. Allen saluted and closed and locked the door. Mrs. Mary stood waiting. As Susan and Roger entered the house, she embraced Susan and hugged Roger. I'm so glad you're here. And you, Deputy Smith, make yourself comfortable. You know where your rooms are. I'm going to bed now. Sleep well. Susan smiled and kissed Mary's cheek. Thank you, Mary, thank you. Mary said, you're very welcome. It's the least I can do. Good night. 3 answers, good night. Susan turned to Roger. It's your bedtime, son, you know what to do. Good night, honey. Then Susan sat down and burst into tears. Allen didn't know what to do. He was very uncomfortable. But Susan smiled through the tears. I'm sorry. Deputy Smith, I'm just so relieved. It's hard to believe we're safe. But with you and Sheriff Murdoch, I think I can relax a little. Allen gently took her hand. Just call me Allen. I'm here to protect you and your son. If you need, just call out, and I'll be there, I promise. Susan thanked Allen. Then she said, is it okay for me to sit here for a little while? Roger's in the bath, and I think I would like to listen to a little music. Alan replied, "Of course it's okay. This is your home for now. I'd like the music, too." She walked over to the radio, turned it on, waited until it warmed up, and then tuned in some quiet dance music. It seemed to soothe her. She sat, put her head back, and closed her eyes. Alan sat quietly, alert, and waiting. For what? He was not sure, but he was ready to investigate any sound. Roger came out dressed in John's extra long t-shirt. "Mom, I'm done with my bath. Did you brush your teeth?" "Yes, I did." "Good, come, give your mom a kiss good night, and jump in bed." "Okay, Mom." "Deputy Alan, can I shake your hand good night? Isn't that what guys do?" Alan laughed. "Roger, guys shake hands, but very special friends aren't afraid to hug." Roger smiled and hugged Deputy Alan. "Good night, Deputy Alan." And Roger skipped off to bed. Susan asked Alan to turn off the radio when he had enough music. Then she bent down and kissed Alan on the cheek. "Good night, Alan. And thank you." "Good night, Mrs. Allen," she replied. "Call me Susan, okay? Good night." The night was uneventful. Alan made himself a pot of coffee and had a couple of cups. Come 6:30 a.m. and Susan got up, woke Roger, and they began to prepare for the day. Susan stuck her head around the corner. "Alan, what would you like for breakfast?" Alan answered, "Oh, nothing, I'll get something at the truck stop after I turn you over to my relief." "Nonsense. I can cook you up anything you like, within reason." Alan replied, "I can't eat on somebody else's nickel." Susan smirked. "Let's see, Alan, you look like a 2 eggs over easy, bacon, no, sausage links, hash browns and sausage gravy, kinda guy. Am I right?" Alan blinked. "Yeah, you're right." "How did you know?" Susan said, "Wouldn't you like to know? I worked my way through medical school as a waitress at a truck stop." The light went on in Alan's head and eyes. "If that is what you're going to cook up, I will have some." After breakfast, Alan escorted Susan and Roger to his patrol car and drove them to Dr. Phillips' office, where he met up with his relief, Deputy Amber Clark. They hustled their charges into the doctor's office. "I'll see you tonight, Susan, Roger." Susan turned to Alan. "Thank you, Alan. I seem to be saying thank you a lot." Alan smiled and waved. Every day a sheriff's deputy would pick up Susan and Roger at the doctor's office. Every evening Deputy Alan would arrive at the home where Susan and Roger were staying at as close to 8 as possible. Susan would welcome him, and Roger would run in to meet him. After a few minutes, Susan would send Roger off to get ready for bed. Roger would come out to kiss his mama good night and hug Deputy Alan, then off to bed. Susan offered Alan a cup of coffee, and then she would turn on the radio to some quiet dance music. This had become their routine every evening. After about 2 weeks, when Susan had turned on the music, she turned to Alan. "Alan, do you dance?" Alan smiled and said, "I've never danced a step in my life." She answered, "I could teach you." Alan looked at the ceiling. "Nah, I'm afraid I would be like a bull in a china shop. I don't think I'm coordinated enough." Susan laughed. "Oh, Alan, come on, it's not hard. Besides, you might find that you can do it and you just might like it. Dancing helps the coordination. You know, athletes sometimes take dance lessons to help improve their coordination." Alan looked a little dubious. "Well, I guess we could try." Alan and Susan stood, and she showed where to put his hands, arms, and feet to start. A slow waltz began on the radio. Alan started out as clumsy as he had thought he was. At the end of that waltz, he was embarrassed and stopped moving. Susan kindly helped him to understand where his feet were to go. She reached over and turned off the radio. Then she began to hum a waltz tune slowly as she directed Alan's feet. After about 15 minutes, they stopped and sat. Alan sat at the end of the couch. She would have, ordinarily, sat at the opposite end. However, she sat next to him. She reached out and took his hand. "Alan, we can try another evening." "Thank you." This became the routine every evening. Alan slowly improved his dancing. When he had improved enough, she began to teach him other dance steps. After a while they would see Roger off to bed, hugs, and kisses, then they would dance. Even though they danced, Alan was alert, listening for sights and sounds out of the ordinary. Dr. David introduced Susan and Roger to several specialists, a gynecologist, urologist, and dermatologist. Everything proved to be minor except the extensive scarring. The dermatologist recommended dermabrasion, basically lightly sanding the skin, and anointing the skin with creams to encourage healing. The dermatologist told Susan that it would markedly reduce the scarring. When they began the treatment, there was one problem. Particular portions of the skin would need someone to put on the cream. We can't really touch much of our own backs. One evening Susan asked Alan to put the medicine on her back after she bathed. Alan hesitantly answered, "I don't know. You would have to expose your back." Susan looked a little nervous. "Alan, there's no one else, and I need the medicine, please." Alan replied, "Well, when you're ready, call me in, and I'll do what I can." This then became part of the routine for a couple of weeks, Alan and Susan becoming a little more relaxed with it. 4 months of this routine, and one evening, Alan was putting the medication on Susan's back, and he heard an ominous sound. Alan immediately stopped, drew his service pistol, and stepped out to find out what the sound meant. As he looked around into the living room, he saw a shadow at the entranceway. "Stop, police!" The shadow became an enraged man screaming, "I'm going to kill you, copper. I'm going to kill you, that woman and her brat." Alan shouted, "Halt, or I'll shoot." But the enraged man ran directly toward him swinging a knife. Alan shot twice. His aim was right on target. The man dropped. Alan's heart pounded, he felt a little faint and so sat down. He quickly jumped up and went into Susan. "Susan, go to Roger. I just killed a man. I'm calling Sheriff Murdoch." Sheriff Murdoch arrived quickly and assessed the situation. "Alan, ask Susan to come here, please. Keep your arm around her. I want to know if this is her husband." Alan brought Susan out. Sheriff Murdoch asked, "Susan, is this your husband?" Susan stepped over to take a better look. "Yes, that's Seth, my husband." Then she turned to Alan and put her arms around him, crying and laughing hysterically. "I'm free, oh, Lord, I'm free, I'm free." Alan held her gently and then led her into her room. "Susan, you need to put on some clothes." And he stepped out and closed the door. She called, "Alan, don't leave me. Alan, please don't leave me. I have my nightie on, please don't leave me." Alan called back, "I'm right out here. Just outside the door." Sheriff Murdoch called the coroner. Then, he stepped around where Alan stood. Alan turned to Sheriff Murdoch. "Sheriff, I've never killed a man before. Even while I was a Marine, I never killed a man." Sheriff Murdoch put his arms around Alan. "Take a deep breath, son. I'm here with you. I know what you're going through. You will never be the same. But get hold of yourself. Susan needs you. Susan needs you badly. Be here for her. You stay here with her. I'll send Amber to be with you and Susan, tonight. Starting tomorrow morning, you're on paid leave until the State Bureau of Investigation completes their shooting investigation." Sheriff Murdoch waited until Deputy Amber arrived and then left. Amber put her arms around Alan. "Alan, I'll just be in the living room. I'll take Susan and Roger to the doctor's office in the morning." Alan squeaked, cleared his throat, "Thanks, but if you don't mind, I want to take them." Amber nodded. "Okay." Then she went and sat in the living room. Alan tapped on Susan's bedroom door. "Are you okay?" Through the door, he heard, "No, I'm not." "Alan, please, come in." She was standing in the middle of the room, shaking. When Alan opened the door, she ran to him and threw her arms around him. "Alan, please hold me." He held her gently until the shaking subsided. "It's okay. I'm here." She kissed him very tenderly, a long gentle kiss. "Oh, Alan, you're so strong and so brave." He looked down at her upturned face. "You seem to have calmed down. Shall I let you go to sleep now?" She smiled through her tears. "I don't think I can sleep just yet. I'll just sit out with you and listen to some nice music." Alan spoke. "Okay. Amber is out there right now." She asked, "Why?" Alan answered, "Sheriff's orders." She started for the living room. Sheriff Murdoch is such a good man. Alan and Susan went out to the living room and sat with Amber. After a bit, Susan turned on the radio and asked Alan to dance. Alan stood and danced with her. Amber watched. Alan, when did you learn to dance? Alan smiled. Well, she has been teaching me here after Roger went to bed. We've had a little time every evening for the past couple of months. Amber replied, oh, well, maybe you could dance with me at the sheriff's Christmas party this year. Alan just smiled a little embarrassed smile. There came a message over the sheriff's comm unit. Alan, the State Bureau of Investigation, will be here at 9 o'clock. They want to talk to you in the office when they get here. Alan replied, 10-4, sir. See you in the morning? John replied, yes.